Okay, guys, welcome back to Delve In Inspired. I am here with Linwood Holland. First off, I'm happy to be back. It's a new season, and we have some good things coming up, great topics. But first off, Mr. Holland, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
It's really a pleasure to have you here because we're going to talk about some important things. And first off, let us know where you're from. What part of the city you're from?
I'm born and raised and grew up in North Philadelphia, Strawberry Mansion section of the city. Went to Strawberry Mansion High School, junior and senior high school. I went in the Navy for a few years after college, and basically I've been into anything political ever since then.
Okay.
And I'm still here in Philadelphia now. I'm back in Philadelphia.
So you mentioned you got into politics. How did that happen for you?
That was really kind of, I guess politics follows us all through our life. It was just some events that happened in life, and I said, I couldn't get the answer, so I had to dig deeper, and which led me into the political realm. So that's how I ended up, in politics.
Okay.
Solving problems.
Got you. Well, yeah, you do kind of just fall into politics. That's what happened with me. So, yeah. So now tell us right now, you have an election coming up.
Yes.
You will be on the ballots.
Yeah.
Tell us about that and what role you're going to be playing and if you are elected.
Well, it originally started out as I was looking at a need. How can we help the citizens of Philadelphia when it comes to wealth and their families and growth and everything? And I had an incident where trying to navigate through a death, and the person didn't have the deed right and everything, so it caused a lot of conflict and the money arrangements and saving the property and everything. So I just said, if I went through that, how many other people are in the city going through that? And to my surprise, it was so many people. It seems like an embarrassing situation for some people. You're living in a house. People think it's yours, but it's not really yours. That's not something that people really wants to talk about. But I think we need to, so that we can fix the problem. So I got into it sort of as a teacher and problem solver.
Okay. So let's touch more on that topic as far as, you went through a death, like you said, and the home did not personally belong to you. It belonged to your family member.
Right.
And so you were living there at the time, or were you
No,
not?
I wasn't living there.
You
Actually,
wasn't?
it was a family member.
So what happened was, the state tried to take your property?
Well, I think the city and the state eventually did take it, yeah.
Okay. And that's simply because of why? Could you let us know?
Simply because the smallest of things could have been just put the deed in somebody's name who's alive. I mean, we all know that death is imminent, but you don't know when it's coming. You don't expect it. So most of our parents probably didn't have this knowledge to put the deed in their son or grandson's name so that eventually if something happens, they would not lose their property. If you think about it, they paid for that property and it should be theirs and should not go back to the state or the city that easy.
Right. So what are some of the steps, if you can let us know, some of the steps that a person would need to take in order to get their name on the deed of their home?
First, they would probably, the simplest place would be go to register the wills or, get a lawyer, go down to register the wills and put their name on the deed or have them added onto the deed, which I don't think that's too complicated to do.
Okay.
Another way would be putting them in a will. If you decide to put people in a will, then that makes it easier to navigate the next step.
Okay.
The best solution, I think, it would be a trust, which you would probably have to get a lawyer to do that. And most people might not have the financial needs to do that part. But at least if they do the deeded part, they resolve that and save their property. And eventually they can go on and do the other portions. But to save it right away, I think they need to get their names on that deed immediately.
Okay. If you can let us know also, is a lawyer needed?
A lawyer is needed in most of the situations.
Okay.
Especially a trust fund. When you're doing a trust fund, you definitely need a lawyer because he can navigate through all the ins and outs to make it easy for you. The will, is a little more. You still need a lawyer for a will, but you can do a simple will and just get it notarized probably and get it done. The deeding portion, I believe you have to still go down and register the deed with the register a will so they'll know that you have it on as the person who's going to take over the property.
Okay. Now, so their name's on a deed, someone passes away. What would they be responsible for afterwards?
Well, taxes will still be, mandated by the city and state. So they still be responsible for taxes. What this does to them, though, it allows them to purchase insurance on the property. It allows them to, navigate as if the property was their own, which it is now. So if you don't have that, you're basically living in a house with no ownership.
Wow.
You can't get insurance on it. You can't do none of the things that you would do as a homeowner. Of course, they'll take your tax money. You can still pay the taxes on it, which most people do just to maintain as they're trying to figure out and navigate through a lawyer how they can get the property turned over to their name.
Okay.
I'm looking at some steps, and I'm talking to a few attorneys. It's got to be an easier way that we can navigate this in the city of Philadelphia, where if a person's lived in a house for X amount of years, then we pretty much know that the parent really wanted it to be their house. You know? So we have to just figure out some ways to work this out and make it applicable to everybody in the city.
So let me ask you this. Even if, say, the house is paid off, and there's no, next of kin, no family member on the deed, the house still can be taken?
There's no next of kin. There's no ownership of the house.
Wow.
And what's usually going to happen in a situation like that is the taxes are going to fall delinquent. And then you're set up for the first phase of being eliminated from the property.
Wow. Well, also, let's talk about the getting custody of your children. Yeah. That's something that you focus on and work on as well. Could you tell us a little bit about that? The importance of actually having custody of your children?
And it falls in the same line as I say with the properties. You don't really think, we all know we want to die, but you don't think you want to die today or tomorrow. So you think you have all this longevity to make these plans work. And when you don't, fortunately in our community, we notice that family members tend to take the kids in when it's not a burden. But we don't hear about the situations where the kids have to go to DHS or somewhere else that isn't with a family member growing. So that's why it's probably not widespread to people to understand how it works, because it doesn't happen to everybody. But I think we should be aware of it as the situation can happen and do our due diligence to make sure that we just get ahead of these things, even though we think we're going to live forever. Let's just get ahead of these things, do the paper documents that you need to solidify if anything happens to you, that you know your kids are secure, your property is secure, and everything is taken care of. So I'm just here to basically teach people how to do this and further on negotiate with different attorneys how we can help them and stop this longevity of people and properties and not being able to own them.
Right. Okay. So now you said you teach people. How do you, how can they reach out to you, or how do you reach out to them for the help? They might not even know how to go about it. What should they do?
Well, I have my website, votelholland.com, which I go in there. They can go in and see different avenues of how I can help them.
Okay.
I'm still a grassroots person, so I'm everywhere that I can be to teach people anything that I can teach them to help them, especially in our city.
Okay. So let's talk about, what's going on right now in the city. First off, there was some looting and riots going on recently. And now people are saying that it was because of that police officer that got acquitted of all his charges from killing a resident, a young man down in Kensington. Yeah. So what are your thoughts about that? How do you feel about the riots and the looting? Do you even think that that was even the reason? Do you think it was an excuse to go loot?
I think it pretty much was an excuse to loot, in my opinion, because I usually look at things, how they correlate what can you do to make a solution to the problem? And I think that just exacerbates the problem a little bit more when you start looting. And then we're tearing up our own, neighborhoods. We got people that can't get their medical, assistance because it's gone,
I've seen so many people online laughing, and I'll say adults. Where do you think this comes from? That mentality, like, what is funny? You have to live in this place, and what do you think it's going to take for people to really wake up and realize that you're destroying yourselves? Really, I feel like we keep blaming it on politicians. It's not their fault.
No, I think what people need to understand is their self-worth. Once they realize that they are worth something, then they could probably walk a little more cautious about the way they do things. Right now, we have a mentality that I see of recklessness. I don't care what happens to you or anybody else. And in my opinion, those are kind of dangerous people when they have that mentality that they lost hope and they don't have anything to live for. We need to provide them with something to do for. I'm not, it's not one solution that fits this problem, but, if you can start picking away at it, I think we can help a little bit. But I think the problem is people just, want to live lawless if they can get away with it. And in our city, it seems like you can get away with it. So they're taking advantage of it.
So there's no accountability. Well, do you believe that if we vote differently, meaning, for many years, this has been a Democratic city. Do you think maybe if turning to a Republican mayor may help in some sense? I personally feel like they are a little stricter on laws. What are your thoughts about that, though?
Well, they are really strict on the, crime and policing as a whole. I look at it like a little different, and this is going to sound kind of different to a lot of people. There's no one side that fits it all. And we see that right now with our city being totally run by Democrats, pretty much. It hasn't solved any problems. I believe myself that it always should be a balance of power. When you have a balance of power, then everybody has to be according to each other and make it fair. If you need people that are good people, you shouldn't look at just the party. You should look at the person as a whole and how they represent themselves and how they plan on taking care of the city. If we do that in this city, it could be a Republican mayor. I mean, if we do that, but it could be a lot of Republican and other things. But I'm not going to put a stamp and say that one party is just going to be that sudden change. I think what it's going to be is people. Like, I look at myself as a person who cares about Philadelphia. I was born and raised in Philadelphia. I'm here. I remember Philadelphia being such a great city that I wanted to be that again for my grandkids.
Right. Where do you think people lost hope at? Well, why do you think they lost the hope? Do you think that due to the fact of, the poverty, definitely plays a part, I believe. But at what point did you really realize the turn in the community, as far as, how people just don't care? Back then, I'd say maybe about even 10 years ago, people mentalities were just different. What do you think happened?
I think, we had a lot of different variations. I know everybody likes to blame things on COVID. COVID was a circumstance that caused a lot of situations, and it took people out of a normal routine. Okay. And I think those 2 years has done something to people, and now we're trying to get back on track. After 2 years of basically sitting at home, pretty much for most people, they just sat at home. They couldn't go out or do anything. I'm not going to use that as a whole excuse because I thought at that time it would be a learning experience. Maybe families would teach their children respect and honor and dignity and things that they need to carry on in life.
Okay. Now, I do want to go back to home ownership.
Mm.
I'm noticing a lack. There's not a lot of millennials who are buying homes these days. What do you feel the reason is?
I think they don't feel like, and when I was growing up, it was an expectancy of a certain age that people live to.
Okay.
I think some people think that now, but I think they should be buying homes because if you think about it, we all grew up in a neighborhood in the city of Philadelphia. And if we go back to that neighborhood now, probably not going to see as many people as you grew up with in that neighborhood because they moved out or they lost their properties or something like that. But what we need to do to be the community that I grew up in Philadelphia is get more people to be homeowners. We need to teach them that it's not as hard as they think it is to own a home. And it's probably more beneficial to them than renting an apartment. A lot of people might think it's easy to pay an apartment. You pay a fee and everything. I look at it as throwing money out the window. When you own a house, you become a little more responsible. You have things that you can say are mine now. And I think we need to get people in the mindset of ownership. To own,
Okay. Some feel that, it's harder, to reach the American dream, it's a lot harder than it was many years ago.
Absolutely. It's much harder now. But, just like everything else, we got to forge our way through it. Find a way to adapt and adjust. I always say adapt and adjust because these situations in life are going to be thrown at us from various points. We just have to make sure that we understand how to navigate through them. And I think if it's more people like me and you that are out here educating people, maybe not everybody will grasp onto it, but if we can educate the people and they can pass it on word of mouth to different people, I think that's still effective right now.
Okay. So right now, the presidential election is coming up. Many people are, they had to change your heart. Before it was, they were all for Joe Biden. Now, not so much. What do you think the reason is?
I think the reason is simple and plain. Okay. You can tell me what you want me to believe, but I can actually see what I can believe. So right now, I think a lot of people were just in the phase of just tell me what you want to tell me. I'll take it firsthand and I'll believe it. I'll go. People are more awake now and they be like, hold it. This doesn't look like what you said it looked like. And they're more adept to say, nah, that ain't what he said. That ain't what he said.
Okay.
So I think people are wide awake now and they understand that it's not the person, it's not the party that's already there. It's the person that you need to get there to get you where you're going. I'll tell you an example that I use a lot of times.
Okay.
We have communities. We have representatives from each of our communities. And I'm not saying anything bad about any representatives because some do and some don't. So I'll never say all.
Okay.
But as we have these issues in our different areas of the city, North Philly, West Philly, I would have liked to see the representatives address it a little more. I mean, you're paid to represent this community. And if so much bad is happening in your community and we don't hear from you, that's some disenchantment for the community. That's some disconnect too. And I talk to a lot of voters and they tell me, well, I don't even know who my representative is.
Wow.
That is really bad.
Yes, absolutely. So you feel like they should be more involved in a community?
They have to.
Yeah.
They are part of the community. That's the first portion of politics, your community.
Right.
And they grow from there. And we know we hire a lot of people. And I say hire because when you run for office and you get picked, you're getting paid. So you're not doing it voluntarily.
Right.
But your responsibility with that job is to take care of the community that you were elected from.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this because I had this conversation with someone. And do you feel that the older politicians that are in office now, whether it's locally or not locally, do you feel that, like you mentioned, there's a disconnect? At some point, they just need to step down and let the younger generation of politicians step in and take over because like you said, there's a disconnect. I kind of feel like they don't understand what's really going on. We're in just two different time frames,
Generation gap.
yeah. Do you feel like there should be a limit, and just say, okay, you know what, you had your run, time to step down, let somebody else in, because they'll continue to run and run and run, and
We
it's
see
like,
that. We
yeah,
see that now.
yeah,
My thing is, I know that the world is based on, where you're at the time.
hmm
Right now, we should have younger politicians in office, in every office. And I'm not saying nothing about the older politicians.
hmm
What they should have been doing is like mentoring
right,
these younger people to get them in office.
hmm
And then, because this is their world, this
hmm
is technology. Most of those guys that are older, they don't know nothing about technology. They probably have somebody, doing it for them. But this is a world where the laws and the changes are going to affect people that are younger. So they should be in there making these laws apply how they live and how they're going to live for the next few years. These older people are going to die, and they're putting laws in that are antiquated, first of all,
right,
and they apply to their living, but they don't have any concern about the living of the younger generation. I always tell my daughter, I think politicians should be about 50 years old right now. They be getting ready for their generation and their kids, and they coming, and they should be grooming the world for them.
right.
At 80, you look at the world totally different
Yeah,
than
absolutely.
somebody in their 50s, and it is a real big gap too.
Yes, definitely. So I want to ask you two popular questions. Right now, if you had the choice, would you vote for Donald Trump or Joe Biden?
Right now, I would like for both of them to like be out of the mix, and I would like for somebody younger to be in there to run for president. First of all, I worry about cognitive things like, are they competent to do the job that needs to be done on a whole scale? Do they have the energy to do the job? So on both of them, I would have to say, let's get
If you had
somebody
the
young.
choice.
If I had
But
the
if you had the choice, I mean,
If
you
I
had
had
to
the
pick.
choice,
If
and
you
I'm
had
gonna
to
be
pick.
honest, I wouldn't pick Biden right now because I don't think that he's capable of doing a full job.
Okay.
And I would pick Trump for the simple reason of what I've already seen him do. And personality-wise, I know it's a controversy there.
Right.
But I'm looking at, if we just focus on what the work that was done and the things that were progressing as opposed to non-progressive, then that would be my choice probably.
Okay. How do you feel about stop and frisk? Do you think that's something we need to bring back?
With respect.
Mm.
I think, at this point in time, what is there that you need to do to bring order and law back to a standard that we can live with in this city? Stop and frisk, I would not rule it out. But, when you're dealing with something like as sensitive as this issue like that, I want to be making sure that the person that's stopping and frisking this person doesn't have another agenda. I want to make sure that this person is a law-abiding officer who is out to make sure that this person doesn't have instruments of crime that he shouldn't have. Other than that, leave people alone,
I think there's no way to really know, someone, because anyone can have a hidden agenda, so, but, I think a lot of people just felt like, they were stopping certain people, and we know who those people are. But at the same time, if they're the ones out there that you see committing, these crimes,
Stop them.
it why would you go stop someone in a wheelchair? Does that make sense?
No, that doesn't make sense.
That doesn't make sense. So you're going to stop the one that's more likely to, and use your common sense to commit these crimes, But I get it, it's not right. Certain, police officers, abuse it, but.
But think about this though. If you are a person without technology today, we can see a lot more than they're letting us on to believe that they could see. So if you know a person is of that nature and they don't care and they're going to do that, then I'm not saying harass them, but if they violate the law, then I think you should stop them.
Mm-hmm.
I think you should. Right now, in my opinion, we're looking at cops in different sections of the city that are standing down when crime is happening right in front of them.
Wow.
I mean, our big example is Kensington.
Mm.
I mean, it's a safe haven for drug users and drug dealers. Remember, they only talk about the drug users, but it's a safe haven for both. The cops don't go in and violate anybody in there or arrest anybody in there.
Wow. Would you think the charges would stick anyway if they did?
That's another question. I mean,
Probably not.
I don't get it where you can have a law which says that if you go to this amount of money, we're going to arrest you. If not, we're going to send you back home. I think that just opens the door for people who probably wouldn't steal. But now they know that they have a boundary that they can't go past. So, okay, I can go and steal because they're going to let me go.
So that doesn't help.
No, it doesn't help at all. We need all cylinders working together. I mean, I knew from the beginning when our police commissioner, our mayor, and the DA weren't on the same page, it was just a recipe for a disaster.
Wow.
And we're sitting in a disaster right now. If these guys decide to get it together and work as a team, there's no way the sixth largest city in the United States should be in this kind of turmoil.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about immigration.
Okay.
How do you feel about these people crossing this border illegally? Now we know Joe Biden, he welcomes it. Okay. But do you think it's safe, number one, for us as a country? And does it hurt our economy? Because, they're spending billions of dollars, because of this. How do you feel about that? We know Donald Trump wanted to put the wall up and do all this, to prevent it. But how do you feel about the immigrants coming over illegally?
Well, I think it's a serious problem.
Okay.
And I don't think people look at all the aspects of it. First of all, we have situations in our country right now where people are homeless, poor, and can't afford to eat. So if we're bringing more mouths over and they have the same situation, we're adding to a problem, or we're going to be taking care of one group as opposed to another group. From what I'm understanding, the immigrants, when they come over here, they get certain kind of treatment that people here don't even get.
Yes, absolutely.
So, I mean, I'm against it in that sense.
Okay.
I'm for freedom, though. I believe people should have an option to go to different countries and stuff like that.
But come over the right way.
But a process. You have to go through the process. You can't just say, I'm coming across the border, I live here now. I mean, our city has the concept of that, but you just can't take illegal people and just dump them off in the city of Philadelphia. Where are they at? Shouldn't we as citizens know where these people are at, even if we want to assist them or not? But we have people in our city, we don't know where they're at. You know how many buses came over here? These buses coming from Texas, dropping off illegal immigrants. Where did they go?
Right.
And what neighborhood are they in? But I can guarantee you what neighborhood they're not in.
Yeah,
I can guarantee you that.
We know what neighborhood that is.
Exactly.
Yeah. And before we, close out, what do you feel impacts our nation the most right now?
What is impacting our nation right now?
Yes. In your opinion?
The economy.
Okay.
The economy is, we were in a state, whether people want to believe it or not, heading in a direction of self-sufficiency. Our nation was in that direction. When the president came in and cut the pipeline, which would have been beneficial for Pennsylvania and Philadelphia, we would have had the cheapest gas in the country pretty much. Now New Jersey has it, but we don't have that. So we're dependent on other countries to take care of us when we should be self-sufficient. And that's a big problem. That's a big problem. So I think the biggest concern I have right now is the economics. How do we fix them? And who are the people that we need to take care of right away? The homeless, the veterans? I think so.
Okay. Well, is there anything else that you want to add? And also give us your social media handles or website so that people can, find you if they need to,
You,
let's know.
you can definitely reach me at votelholland.com. I have all my information there. You can volunteer. You can give your assistance in any kind of way. This primarily is something that I'm doing for the citizens of Philadelphia because I love Philadelphia. I'm retired right now, so I can go back home and do nothing. But I've always been doing this for all my life, grassroots, helping people and everything. So I'm committed to this. If you elect me, you'll see it's going to be some work getting done. It's not going to be just sitting in office and collecting your check. I'm going to be working for you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and so that's great. So November 7th.
November the 7th is a big day.
November 7th, go out to the polls, vote Linwood Holland. Okay. Again, Mr. Holland, thank you so much for coming. And make sure you guys subscribe to my YouTube channel, delvianinspired.com. And we will see you the next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.